Hey everybody, welcome in to Flag for Discussion, episode 85 for Monday, July 6th. My name is Farbod Merkazi. Jace Hatfield is out today, so you are stuck with me for this week's episode. But, obviously with the holiday being this week and not a ton happening in college football, we get to kind of have a choose your own adventure kind of show. And I've mentioned that phrase before in this podcast and past podcasts, but I want to try to just talk about as many teams as possible. Obviously, with this being the 4th of July, today I'm actually recording this on the 4th of July. 11:42 p.m. at the time of recording. Had finished all of our festivities, and I still had energy, and I was like, I'm going to do a solo pod, so might as well just get it done now. Let's go on. Let's talk some college football. End the night out. Isn't this what our founding fathers fought for? For the ability and the freedom to go and do a podcast at 11:40 p.m. at night. So that is how my 4th of July is looking. And honestly, before we even get into the show, I got a bit of a confession to make. Like, I think I have officially crossed a threshold in my life. I'm fireworked out. I love the 4th of July. I love the festivities. I love what it means. I love this country. I love the concept of fireworks. And I'm just completely done with the actual execution of them. When I was growing up, we would always go and make sure we camped out to make sure you get into the best view of the fireworks along the bay out here in Southern California, or maybe you want to go see the Disneyland fireworks, or wherever there's fireworks, you want to go make sure you watch them. First of all, fireworks in my city where I live are banned because of the fire hazard. But maybe it's just I've gotten lame, or maybe I've gotten older. Maybe it's probably a mix of both. But I truly believe today, in this year, my wife and I, we did it flawlessly. We stayed home. We fired up the Blackstone. We made some really good smash burgers. We hung out with my family. We lit up our fire pit afterwards, made some s'more, drank some good cold beverages. My dog was right next to me. She was completely calm. Stress was free. And I still experienced fireworks from around. They were just in the sky, and I wasn't the one that had to make sure the parking spot was perfect so we could make sure the view was perfect, make sure everything's perfect. Like, no, we get to go sit in your backyard, calm, quiet, and you get not quiet, and you get to just enjoy the festivities at the comfort of your own backyard. I don't need to be honest with you, I don't need to be out there on the driveway in the backyard in the middle of a field with an explosive cardboard tube and a lighter. I value my peace. Honestly, I've mainly the Najee Harris story from last year scares the shit out of me. I value my vision. I don't need firework to take out my eye just because I want to light this thing. I'm perfectly content just being at home with a burger, a fire, and both my retinas. Thank you very much. On the college football front, not that whoever is actually listening to this solo pod is probably just thinking to themselves, man, this guy's just lame. Like, this guy is just a damn loser. But on that note, I hope everyone's had a wonderful 4th of July. I've had a great day, great evening, great time with family. It was just perfect. But I'm a little fireworked out at this point. On the college football front, there's some just random updates before we get into the meat and potatoes. Oregon's on a recruiting heater. They've gotten back-to-back days where they've gotten a 5-star commit to the school. So they're up to number 2 on the 24/7 top 10 recruiting leaderboard. Deion Sanders is cancer-free, or at least he says he is. I mean, not that I don't believe him, but he said, I consider myself cancer-free. That's wonderful. That's amazing news for him. That's amazing news for Colorado. That's amazing news for all Deion and Coach Prime supporters. Realignment officially took place July 1st. The Pac-12 is back as the Pac-8. Obviously, we knew that was happening, but as of July 1st, it's officially back. We got Boise State, Colorado State, Fresno State, Oregon State, San Diego State, Texas State, Utah State, Washington State, all back and in one conference. And, it's just fun. Like, obviously, for those of you who know me, know Jace, what school we root for. We back the Pac still. And it's unfortunate that what happens to the Pac-12. So it's cool to see what's happening now, even if it's just basically just the Mountain West putting on a Pac-12 logo in front of them. And as I mentioned earlier, there's not a ton going on in college football. The biggest news of the last week was Brendan Sorsby coming out with a statement like he's understood what he did and he's preparing for the NFL draft next year. Other than that, the conference media days are coming up. So we're going to get plenty to talk about as teams, coaches, and players go to the media days and have a lot to say about a lot. Big 12 starts this week, July 7th and 8th. They're going to be talking at the Ford Center in Texas. The ACC is next week. They're going to be in Charlotte. TC comes out about a week after that in Tampa. And then the Big 10 is at the end of July in Chicago. So basically, if you've never experienced any like media day in general, every school brings their head coach. Obviously, the head coach gives a series of statements, series of interviews, and they bring in 1 to 3 players from their team to represent their team. They also give interviews. They also take a photo shoot. And those players are the ones that would more often than not will be a quarterback. Some schools may not bring a quarterback, but for the most part, it'll be a quarterback plus a veteran leader here on the defense, veteran leader on the offense. Every school does it differently, but those media days will happen. So although we don't have a ton of college football news right now to react to, there's going to be plenty coming in the month of July. So make sure you are following us on TikTok at flag4discussion, Twitter at F4discussion. We're on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you get your podcast at flag4discussion spelled out. We're also on YouTube at flag4discussion spelled out. All right. So I want to talk about as many teams as I can in about 20 to 30 minutes, and we'll call it a night because, like I said, even though I have plenty of energy and am enjoying the fact that I get to talk college football right now, it is 11:40 p.m. my time. So I still got to get to bed at some point. Let's make this beginning an SEC topic. Let's talk about as many teams as we can by ranking the SEC head coaches. Now, this is just my ranking. This doesn't mean it's Jace's rankings. It's not an official flag for discussion ranking. This is how I feel about each of the coaches in the SEC heading into 2026. So I'll give you one off the bat. Number one, you should know this by now, Kirby Smart. He's the gold standard. Georgia's the gold standard. 2 national titles in the last 4 or 5 years. They're consistently one of the sport's most dominant programs, one of the sport's most fierce programs in recruiting on the field. Even they're one of those programs that if you beat them, it's a shock. And it's a shock not only because of how good they are right now, but because of the track record that Kirby Smart has built and put together there. And there's not a lot more to say. There's obviously Kirby Smart's gonna be at 1, but I'm gonna move down to 16. I've seen a bunch of different SEC head coach rankings. Obviously, this is kind of diving into your very basic topic selections for podcasts and articles that everyone starts doing, but I'm glad at least we waited until July to do it. If some people start doing that back in January or February, right when the season ends. I've seen a lot of people do these SEC head coach rankings, and a lot of people immediately put Will Stein at the bottom. I understand that sentiment. I understand it. He's never been a head coach before. He's coming in young. You expect him to make mistakes. But he was the offensive coordinator at Oregon. He was really good there. Now, I have mixed feelings about him. I have mixed feelings about the way he left Oregon. I also have mixed feelings about, like, is he, not that he's an immature guy, but is his temperament at this young of an age in his early 30s ready to lead a team in the SEC, or is he going to wear himself out? I have those concerns. But I also, you all know how I feel about Pete Golding. He's never been a head coach before. I don't give me he was the head coach for Ole Miss during the playoff run. That was Lane Kiffin's team. That was not Pete Golding's team. Yes, he did a great job keeping them together so they could go out and win the games that they won. But that was not Pete Golding's sample size as a head coach to show how good he would be. I'm sorry, that's just not. So in saying that, I fully believe that Pete Golding could end up being a really good coach. I haven't seen a lot from him since Lane Kiffin left that I'm like, man, that's a guy players are going to run through a wall for. That's a guy that I'm going to be excited to send my kid off to play for. That's a guy that I know in 5 years is going to have Ole Miss still humming. I just don't know. I think Will Stein is your obvious number 16 pick for the quote unquote current worst coach in the SEC. I personally would put Pete Golding there and then Will Stein at 15. Now, Will Stein has plenty of room to grow. I think Kentucky, just with their schedule this year and the fact that the roster required a pretty dramatic flip when Will and his staff got in, they're not going to be very good this year. He's probably going to be towards the bottom again next year, heading into 2027. But I don't know. There's not much that inspires me about Pete Golding. I think they're going to be, it's funny because Ole Miss is going to be really good this year. They bring Trinidad back. They bring back a lot of what made last year's team special. I can't find myself getting behind the Pete Golding bandwagon. So he's my number 16 coach in the SEC. Will Stein's my number 15. Number 14. Now, this is where it can get tricky. Now, there's a bit of a trend between like 14 and 11. There's not really anywhere that's obvious to put these guys because you don't know how they'll do at the schools that they're at. So Ryan Silverfield, he was an excellent head coach at Memphis for 10-ish years. He built that program back up after Mike Norvell left it. He was really, really successful at a place at Memphis, 50-25, 111 win season. This hire, though, at Arkansas was met with a lot of skepticism. Arkansas fans wanted probably a bigger, sexier name. A lot of times that ends up working out for schools. If I remember, like, there's plenty of schools that want to go for the sexy name, want to go for like the name that everybody knows, want to go for the name that has a lot more followers on social media, whatever it may be. But there's a reason some of those guys have become available. And instead, if your athletic director does his homework and goes and hires the best fit for your school, best fit for your program, that might work out. Is Ryan Silverfield that at Arkansas? I'm not sure. But I do want to give him a shot because in 75 games at Memphis, he won 50 of them, and he had great seasons in general. But he is my number 14 coach there. I think the coaches ahead of him have shown even greater performances, or at least a bigger track record in the SEC. That he's had no time as an SEC head coach. Like I said, he's been successful at Memphis. I don't know how he'll be at Arkansas. I'm honestly, if you were power ranking how the SEC teams itself heading into this year, Arkansas would probably be your last place team. Every team is just so good. Ryan Silverfield, I hope he gets a fair shake there, but it's just building up a team that's pretty much dead to more than relevance in the SEC is just so hard. So he's my number 14 coach. Number 13. Now, this might be met with some criticism because of who number 12 is. But Alex Golesh, he's also a new coach in the SEC. Auburn hired him out of South Florida. And South Florida, if you had been listening to Flag for Discussion during the football season, kind of became our secondary school. Jason and I, we were picking them constantly in Shot in the Bark. They full-blown upset Florida. They almost did it to Miami. Like, they became so much fun. Byron Brown, that team with Alex Golesh, head coach, prove to everybody that they could be really damn good. Alex Golesh, really good offense, can coach his team. They're recruiting in the top 10 right now. I don't know the last time Auburn was doing that. Just came into Auburn though. Now, their schedule is a bit tough, but as I'm going to say that like 10 more times as we go up the next 10 names. It's just the SEC. New coach comes in with head coaching experience from South Florida. I like a lot about him. I just need to see more of him. So he's been a riser everywhere he's been. You could convince me that in a year from now, Alex Golesh is much, 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 much higher on this list than anyone could have predicted heading into this year. But the reason I said there would be some criticism with me putting Golesh at 13 is because that's where I've seen a consensus putting Jeff Levy, the Mississippi State head coach, at 15, at 16, just because Mississippi State was so bad. I'm sorry, do we remember what Mississippi State went through? They haven't been like formidable in quite a while. and maybe not probably the Dan Mullen era, but then they went through multiple firings of coaches. They bring in Mike Leach, who obviously is not going to get your program to a national championship necessarily, but he was bringing them back to relevance, bringing them back to at least watchability. They were fun. Mike Leach, unfortunately, tragically passes away. They hire the interim to be their full-time coach. That goes terribly bad. They bring in Jeff Lebby to a dilapidated roster, trying to just piece things together, trying to make it work. Jeff Lebby was a really successful offensive coordinator everywhere he went. So I expect him to consistently continue to be good wherever he goes. It's just, does he have the pieces with him? I think Jeff Lebby's a damn good coach. And that's why I just give him the benefit of the doubt, putting him above a couple of the coaches who haven't coached in the SEC yet. Now, you might call me a hypocrite by who's at number 11, but I think Jeff Lebby has a chance to be pretty damn good as long as he continues to get the opportunity to build this team the way he wants to. They showed progress in year 2. They still had a losing record. Year 1, they were just hopeless. This past year, they lost to several good teams, but they were closer losses. And you don't take like joy in saying that. But at the same time, Jeff Lebby is good enough as a coach, in my opinion, to warrant this spot, and good enough as a coach, in my opinion, that if Mississippi State continues to give him the opportunity to build his team, he's going to be up in the top 10 in a year or two as the Mississippi State head coach. Number 11. Now I mentioned that you might be calling me a hypocrite because I put Jeff Lebby ahead of a couple guys who had never coached in the SEC before. But John Summerall is going to be at 11. John Summerall he's the head coach of Florida. If you didn't know, he is consistently pulling together winners, consistently putting together rebuilds at fast paces. He quickly built a winner at Troy, and I don't know a ton about Troy. I know for a fact it's hard to build a winning team or a consistent, sustainable winning team at Troy, and John Summerall did that. After that, he goes to Tulane. He's a riser in himself. He goes to Tulane, and Willie Fritz left them. People thought Tulane might go in the tank. They lost their athletic director right after that. People thought they might go in the tank then. John Summerall comes in, builds them back up, rebuilds that team, and Tulane made the college football playoff. I think that's all you need to know. John Summerall has the ability to build a culture. I don't know. Culture is such a rapidly thrown around word in college football, in all sports, that you feel like I feel almost silly bringing it up. But there were multiple post-game pressers where Tulane crushed the team last year, and you just see John Summerall pissed off. And I'm not asking for a begrudging of a coach. I don't want him to be Bill Belichick. But you know that there's a standard that guy is building towards. And you know every one of his players, because they weren't celebrating after big wins like that, also feel the fact that, like, man, that wasn't good enough. Now, Florida has been going through their own hell. I brought up Dan Mullen, their own hell since Dan Mullen's firing. And Dan Mullen deserved to get fired at the time, but that was the last time they were really, like, relevant. Billy Napier, for all of his warts, really built up that program's infrastructure. They never could translate it to winning, but they had the right people in the building, and they were recruiting well. All the resources are there. Florida has a chance to be a quick riser, and given that John Summerall has that track record, but also the fact that everything's there at Florida. You just got to do it right. And I'll say this, one benefit that John Summerall has that Billy never did, or it seems like he never did, John Summerall actually has a workable schedule this year at Florida. Now, it's not easy. No SEC schedule is. But Billy Napier had almost like grounds to sue the SEC the last 2 years with how impossible of a schedule they gave him. And he was like, guys, I'm on the hot seat. How are you going to keep doing this to me? They're going to fire me. And you're putting me going Alabama to Texas, like, some of these schools are playing nobodies. Some of these schools are getting the weakest parts of our conference week after week after week. Remember Texas A&M last year? People kept asking, are they legit? Are they a legit 12-0? Are they a legit 11-0? Because they played some good teams, sure, but they haven't played a lot. And while Texas A&M was doing that, Florida was playing a murderer's row. So one benefit that John Sirmall has this year, he doesn't have to deal with that. He does not have to play a murderer's row of teams. If I were willing to bet, John Sirmall is going to be in like number 6, number 8 next year, heading into the season next year. Maybe even higher, but I think if he can just land at those spots, it was a successful year one hire for Florida. Number 9, Clark Lee, Vanderbilt. He probably deserves to be higher. It's unheard of what he's done at Vanderbilt. Unheard of, not necessarily just the fact that he had a good season or 2 good seasons. What he's done at Vanderbilt, he's changed the expectations of Vanderbilt. He's changed the perception of what is possible that for Vanderbilt football. Like, so I probably, it's one of those things like I wish I could put him higher. I wish I could put him higher than 9, but it is one of those things that I don't know. He's been 58-29, back-to-back 10-win seasons, been program winning at an no, not 58-29. That's the guy above him. I was reading the wrong thing. But he's dramatically changed expectations of Vanderbilt. Dramatically. And at some point you just have to think about, when was the last time a 5-star quarterback considered Vanderbilt? When was the last time a 5-star quarterback flipped from Georgia to go to Vanderbilt? And that's what Clark Lee did. Now, will they be as good this year as they were with Diego Pavia the last 2 years? I doubt it. They have Jared Curtis, 5-star, the best quarterback in the country, from Nashville, coming in, and he's a presumed day one fall camp to game 1 start. You all know my feelings on first year freshman starting quarterbacks. I never assume that they're going to be terrible, but I also don't assume that they're going to light the world on fire and be unbelievable and something to really change the program. So I don't expect Vanderbilt to take a step forward as a program on the field this year. But Clark Lee's done everything he can and more to build a very formidable team and change expectations down with Vanderbilt football. Number 8, I said the 58-29 stat on accident about Clark Lee. I met Eli Drinkwitz he's the Missouri head coach. Really, honestly, Missouri for a while as a college football fan is like, oh, they're a threat, but they're never been like, oh, you got to worry about them. With Eli as the coach in Missouri, they've not only brought in some of the best recruits in the country, but they are consistently an over 500 team, a winning team, a team that's fighting for a playoff spot, back-to-back 10-win seasons, different quarterbacks leading them to those spots, different running back, the different pieces year after year that are leading them to those spots. But all Eli Drinkwitz does is continue to build a program, build the team. And there's probably better coaches than him in the country, than him in this conference. There's probably better coaches than him around the country. But if you are a program looking for sustainability and consistency year in, year out, a standard to uphold, but also understanding I can innovate, Eli Drinkwitz might be your guy regardless. And there's a reason we saw him in consistent coaching carousel rumors throughout the last couple cycles of the carousel. He's credit to Missouri for doing what they've done to keep him there. Credit to Eli for showing loyalty and staying at Missouri. But I know for a fact this year, when the first major program fires their coach or coach retires or they part ways, Eli Drinkwitz is going to be on the short list again for one of those jobs. Josh Heupel is going to be my number 7 coach. He's a Tennessee coach, just an unbelievable coach. The only knock I would have on him, I think there's fans and even sometimes me that are like, his offense is unbelievable, so much fun to watch. It puts up points at a rapid rate, but you can't win with that. You can't win a national title with that. You can win games with that. You can't win a national title with that. I don't know how true that is. I just know Josh Heupel came in from UCF and righted the ship at Tennessee. Tennessee was floundering. They were going through some scandal. They were down. And Josh Heupel not only built them to a point of respectability, to a point of stability after the crap that they went through, but he also is consistently elevating the standard at Tennessee, consistently winning. And honestly, one of the ways he did it was by sacrificing how they would play on the field this past year. I know most fans don't want to hear, most fans wouldn't want their coach to be like, I don't want this quarterback. But remember what happened last year with Nico Iamaleava in April? When he just basically was holding out for more money from Tennessee, and Josh Heupel said, nah, dude, Tennessee's bigger than you. Tennessee's bigger than me. Well, you're not going to take advantage of me and the university you play for just because you're the quarterback. Get out. And Nico went to UCLA. More power to him. Go have fun there. Go back home. But Josh Heupel showed his boosters, showed his fan base, showed the students there, showed the school president, and more than anything, showed his players that nobody is above the Tennessee logo. Nobody's above the university. Nobody's above what they're playing for. You can be the best player on the field. You can be the worst player. We're all Tennessee Volunteers, and we're all fighting for the same cause. So Josh Heupel, I respect him a lot as a coach. I respect him even more as a coach and as a man for the way he handled the Nico Iamaleava situation. Number 6. Now, this, I think, Jace, if you're listening to this, you might be getting out of your seat a little angry. But Brent Venables, Oklahoma head coach. I think I'm much higher on Brent Venables. Maybe I'm the one that's in the wrong than a lot of people. I think Brent Venables, for me, if I want to judge a head coach, I'm going to judge how his program fights every day. They might not win everything. I want to see how hard they play. I want to see if they're diving after any like fumbles, balls on the ground. I want to see if they're like the emotion level. Are they able to keep it together? I also want to see if the side of the ball that the head coach earned his keep in for Brent Venables is the defense. Is that side of the ball at least solid? And then is he able to hire the right people to run the offense? Now, at the beginning, he didn't. And Brent Venables went through the shitter at Oklahoma. They honestly, one of the reasons that they had a bad year, good year, bad year, good year in the first 4 years he was at Oklahoma was because he was not probably ready to be a roster building head coach. They didn't bring in offensive linemen at the clip that they needed to be a strong team in the SEC, and they really paid for it. But Brent Venables' defense is elite. They have Ben Arbuckle as OC. He hired the right guy last year. They brought in John Mateer at quarterback. I think they can be a really damn scary team again this year. I think Jason and I, this is the one team in the SEC that we probably disagree on. I'm really high on Oklahoma again this year, as I was heading into last year. And a lot of that is because the hope with a Brent Venables team, you don't need to put up 38 to win a game. Unlike your previous coach at Oklahoma, Lincoln Riley, where 38 might not be enough to win a game because your defense is awful. Your defense can't stop anything. But with Brent Venables, you're hoping that, oh man, our defense shouldn't give up more than 13. Against the best teams, our defense shouldn't give up more than 25. Our defense shouldn't give up more than 22. So can we bring in a quarterback and offensive system that can truly just put up the points that we need so we can run the game with our defense? And that's Brent Venables. That defense is elite. That defense is fun. And that shows to me that he's got what it takes to run that team the way he wants to. He's not faking it. That defense is his lifeblood, and that he's really representing it well. Number 5, though. Now we're getting into the meat and potatoes. Maybe not the meat and potatoes. That sounds boring. But now we're getting into the point in the top 16 list where you can disagree, but these coaches are clearly in the top 5. Number 5, Mike Elko, Texas A&M. He just led Texas A&M to the best regular season in program history. And that was year 2. They made the playoff. Obviously didn't score much in the playoff against Miami. But just think about where they were with Jimbo Fisher 2 years ago. Jimbo Fisher was just trying to grasp at straws, he finally decided to give up his grasp on the offense a little bit, hired Bobby Petrino, trying to make a change to try to find a way to get that team to win. It just never worked. Jimbo Fisher, the ego, the necessity to call every play, the necessity to have your grasp on an outdated, old offensive system that may have worked for you in 2013 and 14 as the head coach of Florida State, but doesn't work anymore in modern day college football. They got rid of him, but a bunch of guys transferred. A bunch of the guys that were in the best recruiting class ever left. Mike Elko comes in, and he's righted the ship. He also has the mentality that it takes to right the ship the correct way. I guess that sounds stupid, but what I mean by that is last year they had an up and down year 1. And Mike Elko is a defensive coach. At the end of his last game last year in a press conference, he specifically called out his team and his coaching staff and said, I know it's sad that the season's ending, but at least I never have to watch our fucking defense play again. So it's one of those things that, like, the mentality, and like, you don't want your coach to be overly critical, but a public shot against the bow from time to time, just to show that, hey, this year wasn't good enough. This year wasn't good enough for the coaches. This year wasn't good enough for the players. This year wasn't good enough for me as the head coach. And we're going to find a way to make it work. That's either we get better coaches or we become better. That's either we get better players or we train and become better players. And he's upheld that standard. You look at recruiting right now, Texas A&M is number 1 in recruiting, according to 24/7 Sports, in both player accumulation and average rating per recruit. They are going for the right guys. They are building the right way. He is one of those coaches that when they said, oh, if only he's doing it well at Duke, if only he had, like, imagine what he could do at Texas A&M or Alabama or whatever if he had the resources to really go out and evaluate the highest level and turn those 3 stars he was bringing in at Duke into 5 stars you can bring in at Texas A&M. Well, he's doing that. I don't know if they're going to win a national title in the coming years, but the way he's building it really makes you think like Texas A&M could be coming for everybody soon. And I mean, maybe they already are. They barely lost any games last year. Number 4, I am going to put Kalen DeBoer, the Alabama head coach, the embattled Alabama head coach, at number 4 in terms of who's the best coaches in the SEC. I think he has a case to be anywhere between 2 and 8. Now, he has the alpha mentality of he didn't care about people saying you shouldn't want to be the guy to replace Nick Saban. You want to be the guy that replaces the guy who replaced Nick Saban, because you don't want that level of you don't want that microscope on you as the head coach. Kalen DeBoer said, nah, I want it. I want that job, and I don't care what comes with it. I want to go do it. Now, they've had a couple up and down years, obviously more up than down, but some of the losses that they've taken with Kalen DeBoer as the head coach have been incredibly un-Alabama-like. I think personally, Kalen DeBoer is a much better coach than he's shown so far in his couple years at Alabama. With that said, every team in the SEC is really good. There's not a lot of teams that like he can go beat up on just to figure out his offensive system, just to give his guys confidence that he may have been able to do in the Mountain West or the Pac-12. But he can't do that in the SEC. And this year, honestly, it feels like a make or break. Not that he will be fired, but it feels like a make or break. We don't know if it's going to be Austin Mack or Keelan Russell as his starting quarterback. Keelan Russell appears to be the front runner, but we don't know. At least it's going to be this is going to be a quarterback that he chose, and it's going to be his guy. Year 1 was obviously Jalen Milroe. that was Saban's guy. Year 2, Ty Simpson, Saban's guy. Keelan Russell and Austin Mack are DeBoer guys. So if they take a greater rise this year, that's probably indicative of like this is becoming Kalen DeBoer's team finally. But if they're just constantly continue the like downward slope, I don't know if he's going to be at Alabama much longer. I mean, Alabama's is in the 40s in recruiting, you guys. When have we ever heard of that? And that falls, even if you think it's just NIL, even if you think it's on the boosters, even if you think he's not getting the support he deserves. And I'll buy some of that. I also think you could argue like that's on the head coach. That's on the GM. That's on, and all of that falls back on the head coach. So there's a lot that's good about Kellen DeBoer, but a lot more proving to me, to you, to the fan base that he has left to do, especially as the Alabama coach. A guy I wanted to put Kellen DeBoer over, but I couldn't. I didn't have any ability to. I couldn't just justify it. Is Steve Sarkisian. Now you could argue Sark should be number 2. He's been in the playoff multiple times. Consistently has elite recruiting classes. He's been at multiple schools as a head coach. Had some severe issues, which is why he left his initial jobs, but has made it back, became an OC, came to Texas, and he's really proven himself to be an unbelievable head coach. My only reason that I docked him to 3 is I'm not a fan of how last season went. You have a quarterback who came in with, I think, sky high expectations is not giving it the credit that Arch Manning had in terms of hype and preseason hype. And yes, some of his struggles, I assume were on Arch. Some of Arch's mistakes, some of his bad throws, some of his unwillingness to sometimes let go of the ball were on Arch. I also think it was also on the fact that they couldn't run the ball. They didn't have an offensive line that could protect Arch. They didn't have an offensive line that could block for a running game. So when you're making a first-year starting quarterback, he's been at Texas for a while, sure, but first-year starting quarterback play hero ball in the SEC because he doesn't have a run game. He doesn't have an offensive line that can block for him. You're going to make that guy do that? You're at Texas. That's just unacceptable. But in saying that, like I said, multiple college football playoff appearances. He consistently has elite recruiting classes. He's a very, very good head coach that just feels like he still hasn't gotten over the hump. And I believe he can. I believe he will. He just hasn't done it yet. Number 2 leaves one more. Lane Kiffin, LSU head coach. I didn't say who would I want to be my head coach the most in the SEC when I made this list, because I don't know if I could get behind some of the antics that he does on a day-to-day basis as my head coach. But what I can tell you is his teams are fun to watch. He knows what he needs. He knows an elite offensive line is necessary. He knows an elite defensive line is necessary, and he knows how to build a really, really good offense. So from the quarterback, this year is going to be Sam Levitt, to a run game. Look at Lacey with Ole Miss that he had for years. For the last couple of years. Lane Kiffin knows how to build a ball club. Lane Kiffin built Ole Miss up to get to the playoff last year. Lane Kiffin built Ole Miss up to be a favorite this year under Pete Golding. Now imagine what he can do as the head coach at LSU. You might not like what he says. You might not like some of his antics. You may not like how he goes about his business. But what I can tell you is he's a really damn good football coach. You just wish it didn't come with all the stuff that it came with. So that makes my top 16 list: Kirby Smart, Lane Kiffin, Steve Sarkisian, Kalen DeBoer, Mike Elko, Brent Venables, Josh Heupel, Eli Drinkwitz, Clark Lee, Shane Beamer. I totally skipped Shane Beamer. Number 11, John Summerall. Number 12, Jeff Levy. 13, Alex Golesh. 14, Ryan Silverfield. 15, Pete Golding. 15, Will Stein. 16, Pete Golding. Real quick on Shane Beamer. Guy, I had him at 10. Clearly, I must have just skipped him. Shane Beamer is a perpetual guy on the hot seat. Every year, you assume either he's going to go out and have an unbelievable season, or he's going to go 4-8, and we're going to wonder if South Carolina is finally going to decide to move in a different direction. He's got the best roster he's had in his 6 years at South Carolina set to take the field this year. Is that going to make a difference? I don't know. I think he's a good coach, but he consistently has lost some really heartbreaking games to Alabama and some of the bigger teams in the conference the last couple of years. That's been the biggest difference. He goes from having a really good year to an abysmal year, not just like a small drop off, an abysmal year. And then has a good year again, an abysmal year after that. Is he able to move in a way that it all makes sense, and move in a way that like he can be linearly going forward, in a way that he can take advantage of the roster he put forth at South Carolina for 2026? If he can be a riser, because I don't think anyone's doubting his intellect or his football knowledge. I think people are just doubting if he can get it done to South Carolina entering year 6. I have more to talk about, but I think I'm going to wrap it up there. It's past midnight my time, and we're much further along in the show than I expected to be at this point. We have a big July coming up. Like I said, I hope everyone had a fun 4th of July. We have a big July coming up. I have a big July. Jace is a big July. And as I mentioned at the beginning of this podcast, every conference is doing their media days during July. So we're going to talk about the Big 12 hopefully next week as their media days come and go this coming week, and we'll get into all the other conferences as they come and go. Make sure you are following us on TikTok at flag4discussion, Twitter at F4discussion. We're on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts at Flag for Discussion spelled out. We're also on YouTube at Flag for Discussion spelled out. Jace missed a fun show. I'm curious to see and hear what he thinks of my rankings and how he would adjust it for himself. Let me know what you guys think too. It's a fluid debate. If you actually want me to go through this and be like, who is a riser, who is a faller? I think Kirby Smart is set at 1. There are very few things Georgia could do in 2026 that would make me drop him below 1. Lane Kiffin, I don't know if he's set at 2. Sark and Kalen DeBoer, I don't know if they're set at 3 and 4. But I can tell you Mike Elko is a candidate to rise. If he continues to build that team, Marcel Reed, why not? Why wouldn't you consider him to be Lane Kiffin or Steve Sarkisian, go 2 or 3 next year? I mean, if Mike Elko has a better year than both of those guys again, why not? Jeff Lebby, I think, can rise. Jeff Lebby is at 12. I think I could see him at 7 to 9 next year. I mean, all the new coaches, Will Stein, Pete Golding, Ryan Silverfield, Alex Golish, John Summerall. I'm curious on where they're going to be in the top 16 SEC head coach rankings next year at this time. So there are some clear candidates to rise, clear candidates to fall. We'll track all of that. Like I said, Jace, text me your rankings. We'll try to have this debate again next week when you come back. Thank you so much for listening. It's been fun. Solo show for me. Jace will be back soon. For myself, Farbod Merkazi, thank you for listening. This has been Flag for Discussion.